Thanks so much for joining me, Major General. First and foremost, do you think this meeting between the Home Secretary and the Met Police Commissioner is sensible? It was pre-scheduled, but specifically to give it this new focus.
Well, if it's pre-scheduled, then you'd expect this to come up. I really do like the operational independence of the police, who have to make fine judgments and decisions based on what's placed in front of them. And that includes the meaning of this word. So jihad has got multiple meanings. In terms of greater jihad, jihad is generally taken to be a spiritual struggle. Lesser jihad is the physical jihad. So again, if you were to look in evidential terms in the public interest test, it might be difficult to get a conviction. Now, all of that, of course, is underpinned also by what is deemed to be a hate crime. And there is a context to this. So it is a very difficult position. The more worrying one in a way for me is the videos of Hizb ut-Tahrir. Now, Hizb ut-Tahrir is a offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas is an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood. And an offshoot of Hizb ut-Tahrir was al-Mujahirun, who have been banned, of course, and there are various subgroups of that. If you look at the lineage between the three, you will find that most of the major terrorist attacks in the last few years have some sort of lineage through Hizb ut-Tahrir to al-Mujahirun to a terrorist attack. And the two most prominent ones, for example, were the Westminster Bridge attack with Khalid Massoud and the London Bridge attack with Karim Butt.
So I'm not sure exactly what point you were making there. So if we move away perhaps from this debate between the Home Secretary and the police about how protests should have been policed potentially over the weekend, are you implying that there is a greater terrorism risk in the UK when you list all of those organisations that you just went through?
There is certainly a potential for that in the future, because you can be propelled by an issue, a single issue or other issues, with this sort of maelstrom of discontent that we see at the moment. Certainly what you can say by all the people that have been seen on various media is that they are not followers of Islam in a sense. They are Islamists, and the Islamists are the ones who absolutely politicise Islam for a different agenda. And really that stems back from both the invasion of Afghanistan in 1979 and the first call for global jihad in 1998 by Osama bin Laden. And it's that which we really see where it's coming together in lots of the things that Al-Qaeda and bin Laden said in terms of what they called the single narrative, that is the removal of Western influence from the Middle East, the removal of apostolic regimes from the Middle East, and the re-establishment of a caliphate. And you see that in a lot of those organisations, which we've seen in the last few days.
But to be absolutely clear, I mean, if people who do have that belief exists in this country, we're talking a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage, are we not? And nothing anywhere close to the people protesting. So it's a very different issue.
It's not necessarily a different issue in the sense that you have to separate the Palestine issue, that is absolutely clear, from the issue of Hizb ut-Tahrir, which is a different issue. So you can protest in support of Palestine, but you can't protest on behalf of Hamas. Now, saying you curse the Jews and the infidels is maybe different than saying that you want to kill the Jews and the infidels, but one of the chaps they've certainly taken in for questioning was using that sort of language. Now, that is the language of the single narrative and towards Al-Qaeda without being that. Now, actually, a study a couple of years ago suggested that there were 20,000 people who wanted their own Sharia area in the UK. And of course, the number of subjects of interest in the UK, that is those who are on the radar of counter-terrorist command, is somewhere near 50,000.
Interesting. So just rounding things off to the topic that we came in on this, do you think the police acted fairly over the weekend? Because as we've sort of been discussing, it is a much higher bar than perhaps people might initially think to enforce the law here, and it requires quite a clear step further to be taken, that people are committing or preparing to instigate acts of terrorism or outright encouraging terrorism.
Well, I think this is more towards the hate crime at the moment than towards the terrorism. And hate crime, of course, is to do with threatening behaviour, assault, crimes based on race, religion and things like that. So certainly this would go into the hate crime bucket. It's not yet in the terrorist bucket. If it were to become towards that, we would see, for example, Joint Terrorism Analysis Centre raising the threat level in the next few weeks.